most hated, weirdest cars that I absolutely love. Now, we're starting off pretty normal as they come, and then getting to some of the weirdest, most obscure cars ever. Starting off with the 2007 Nissan Ultima as the most normal car on this list. If you're wondering why I like this car, we're all biased on the cars that we grew up in, and I grew up sitting in the back seat of one of these Ultimas. We found it for sale, it was cheap, and you betcha we bought it. I loved this car. We had those wheel covers. They look like flowers, right? They look so pretty. We had the silver one, and I love the way it looks. You know, the grille makes it look big and classy. It's got those big things. And I live in Florida, which means I usually see them without a front bumper, you know, bumping their stereo. But, you know, I still love this car. That was still an amazing car, like childhood car to grow up in, and I will always forever love this generation of Ultima. The rest, they all suck, but I really love this generation. It's just so friendly looking with that big, gigantic, wide grille. The next car is the Nissan 370Z. Everyone likes the 350Z. Everyone has the 350Z. I love the 370Z because the 350Z never spoke to me, right? The 370Z, whoo! It's just so nice and fun. The two cars are very similar. Don't get that wrong. They're kind of like the same. But essentially, this one has slightly different, newer styling. And when I was a kid, I had one of these. It was in red, and it had those exact rims, and I loved it. It's got that typical Genesis interior. You know, very common, very, you know, just normal car. I've always loved these. I love the way that they look, right? They're like that hot hatch with the big, gigantic, you know, big-looking, windscreen with the, like, slicked back hair, and, like, it's actually a hatchback. Just so fun and interesting as a little sports car. I've always loved these. The interiors were fine. Everything about them is fine. I just love the way these look. I would 100% buy one of these if I ever felt like buying a Nissan, which I don't at the moment. The next car is the Audi TT. It's gone this year, and I'm sad about it. I had a poster of one of these in my room as a kid. I've always loved these. These have always been great. I knew about it when the 2010 model year was out. That's the first time I had ever heard of an Audi TT. Remember, I'm more of a Toyota person. I was busy with the Celica Alltrack at that time, which was, again, another all-time favorite, but not really weird, and people love it. Yeah, these are just so great. This is, again, another very beloved car, but for me, it's kind of weird to think that I would actually love this car. It's so great. Again, I love a lot of these just smaller, more compact sports cars. You know my taste in cars. Cheap, affordable, small, economical, right? This is not cheap, it's not small, and it's not economical, but, I mean, it's small-ish, it's economical-ish, and it's not bad. The next one on this list is the Audi A4 from 2017. Remember, this is like the last normal car we have on this list. Well, the second last normal car on this list. I love these cars just because they're so nice. Come on, this one's gonna go over quickly. It's got a nice interior. Everything's nice about it. I would love it so much. It's one of the worst engineered cars in human history, and I'm sure it would break down on me in 20 seconds. But I love the way it looks. I want that Audi gigantic sedan life, right? I want that Audi A4. The Nissan Leaf. So many people hate this car. It looks like it has braces. It looks like a dork, and I love it. First generation EV. Everyone whines about, oh, it's going to be terrible. I trust Nissan with some things. This is a car that I trust them on. This car was so perfect. There are things that I don't like about this car. I think the bow tie's hideous. I think the double-decker is hideous. I think the shifting knob is ugly. I think that being out of place is ugly. And yet I still love this car. I would happily buy one of these. Just as a little round-the-town EV, right? That's where I think they actually truly belong, and sales represent that too, right? I think it's just so perfect, right? It's what the consumers wanted, and that's why it sells so well and is still around to this day. Meanwhile, Coda tried to do the same thing. They're not existing anymore, so it's obvious that weird was the way to go, and Nissan followed the pack. I love this car. Dank Pod owns one, of course. I love his wheel covers. I really hated the US ones, especially the reason why I didn't like this car when it first came out. I love the blue. I hate those wheels. They're the ugliest wheels I've ever seen, and I wish I never see them again. You know, just standard. The next car on this list, the Ford Flex. As you know, I'm a wagon person. The Ford Flex is essentially a Ford Explorer, except turned into wagonified. I love it so much. The interior was awful. It was awful, right? The interior, I mean, it was just a Ford. You had that weird, like, gummy Ford steering wheel. You know what I mean? Where it looks like it's a gummy with all the chrome and the lines that fade into obscurity. Just so ugly, and everything, you know, this flat plastic with the capacitive touch buttons and the gigantic oversized touchscreen. This was a very functional car. This was, you know, functionality over everything else. And that's why I love this car. I see them parked outside all the time, and I would gladly not ever buy one of these. I'm just not a Ford person. I love Ford. I love what they stand for. I would never buy one because I like my cars. But yeah, they're very good. I've always loved these. This is where things get this is where things get real deranged for the last 4 car here's. The Mercedes A-Class. Oh, what I would do to get a Mercedes A-Class. These weren't, they're very hard to find in the U.S. because for the most part they weren't really sold here. Anyway, they were just so perfect and so beautiful. I mean, look at it, the shapes and everything. I love the big old wheels. Yes, I know I'm going to tip it over, but it just looks like a happy rabbit or something, and it's just so interesting. Ooh, fancy. I've always loved these. If I could get my hands on one, that'd be great. It's like, I love someone said that to me when I told them that I like these. They were like, I love, out of every single Mercedes, the luxurious, the fancy engines, every single, bit of, work they've done, every single bit of advancement they've done, and you like the least advanced, cheapest car that they've ever made. Yes, that's my taste in cars. It's pretty much nuggets. I love this thing so much, and I love how it's like one of those buses where it doesn't really have a front. We have a few of those in Florida, like the school buses. They're just so amazing. It's got like this black glass and everything so fancy. I love these cars. The next car is the Ford Pinto Woody. I love these cars. Why? Because they're so perfectly useless. I think these cars is a perfect description for how the car market is today. First of all, you will die. Second of all, this is a wagon, which means it's meant to hold big people, and yet there's only one door, which means if you want to carry more than 2 people, it's a pain in the ass. That's just so perfect. It's such a perfect analogy for how the car market is today. It's big and yet completely useless because it's only got 2 doors, which means it's a pain to do anything. It is somehow completely just stupid, and it looks like a wagon. It looks like a wagon. It costed pretty much as a wagon, and yet it doesn't have the functionality of a wagon. And that's like all the cars today, right? It looks good, but it doesn't function good. It's worth nothing. That's why I love these so much. They're just such a, example for the modern day car market. I also love how this goes. I was a Cartoon Network kid. I would 100% love, because they say it's the Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser. It's not. Nicole and Richard Watterson, haven't watched that show in a long time. This was their car. They weren't driving around some Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser. I was watching that show in 2008 when it came out. This, right? That's their wagon. That's what they were driving. 100% love this car. The next car on this list is the Pontiac Aztec. These wheels look great on it. I think the plastic cladding looks great. I love the Honda Element. I probably love the Aztec. The Aztec was essentially GM's Element, kind of, maybe, and it was very good, and I loved this car before Breaking Bad. Unfortunately, I wasn't even existing yet when this car was finally alive, right? So yeah, I didn't really know about it, especially growing up, like, it was, like, just discontinued, so it was like, that's but, these were just so amazing cars. They were great. Were they reliable? Meh, they were GM, but, they were just so interesting and fun to see driving around, especially here, in Maine and Florida. I saw, like, none of these in Florida and Maine. I only saw them when I was driving up. Now I see a few used ones, but, The last car on this list is the weirdest car on this list, right? So we've seen my taste get slowly weirder. What can be weirder than the Pontiac Aztec? What is a car that looks even uglier than the Pontiac Aztec and is even more hated than the Pontiac Aztec? People think I don't know about American motors. Yes, I do. I love the Pacer so much. It is so perfect. Look at the proportions. It's like a tent. Look at that. It's like a tent. The Pacer X. Ooh. I love the 2-tieredness, right? It's not for durability. It's not for anything. It's just there's 2 separate colors on this car. I love the door handles. It's so perfect. It's so beautiful. The proportions make no sense. It's a 4-seater, and it's like my favorite thing when you're sitting in the back of this thing, which I never got to do. AMC didn't even exist when I was alive, right? The entire time that I've been alive. It's like you're sitting back here in your own, like, terrarium. Like, I used to have lizards. It makes me feel like I'm a lizard in my terrarium, right? If you sit in it. It's so cool. I finally saw one the other day, and I was like, I love that car so much. This was the entire inspiration for this video. And I love the Woodies. They just look so classic. Just so perfect. The Pacer was just so weird, Everything was just so weird about it. American Motor Company was always weird, and this is just like the weirdest one, and I loved it. And I will never, I love the AMC Pacer just so much. The banana yellow with the gigantic, this was like the 1970s, right? It didn't have that big of an engine, it didn't need that big of a trunk, and yet it has a gigantic, huge front area, and yet a tiny little passenger compartment. I love this car so much. I would want, if I saw one of these for sale, which remember, it's like it's like finding a needle in a haystack, except your haystack is the size of the US and your needle is microscopic. It's very hard to find one of these. That's not $1 million. These are so great. I would love to own one. Anyway, with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I will see you guys very soon.